Yes, folks, Antifa, the anti-fascist fascist, violently assaulted conservative journalist Andy Ngo last Saturday in Portland, Oregon. But what we must realise here, folks, is this. The left are never what they appear to be. Liberals aren't liberal, they are actually very restrictive. Progressives aren't progressive, they are regressive. The tolerant aren't tolerant, they are intolerant. And the inclusive aren't inclusive, they are exclusive. They include Pacific Islanders, but exclude Christian conservative islanders like Israel Folau. They include women, but exclude women that are pro-lifers. They include gays, but exclude gays that are conservative, like Milo Yiannopoulos and Andy Ngo. So now let's have a look at how inclusive they are towards Andy Ngo. Yes, folks, they are so inclusive towards gays that they beat the crap out of Andy Ngo, simply because he's a conservative, causing a brain hemorrhage. Now let's listen to Andy Ngo himself.
Andy Ngo is an independent journalist in the Pacific Northwest. He's been on the show a number of times. He covers Antifa quite a bit. He was at an Antifa rally over the weekend, minding his own business, covering the news. He's a journalist. When he was beaten almost to death by Antifa, wound up in the hospital. He just got out and joins us now on this program. We're happy to see him. Andy, I'm glad you're capable of doing this interview. Tell us what happened.
On Saturday, documenting this protest that was organized by Antifa and its allies, we were a literal stone's throw away from Portland's most important institutions of the rule of law, the courthouses, the sheriff's office, the central police precinct. While hearing people chant, "No hate, no fear," I'm suddenly bashed on the back of my head from behind, and from there...
You can see he's struggling to speak properly.
I'm a very passive person. I've never been in a fight. It took me a few seconds to realize that I was actually even hitting my head. When I realized what was happening, it was too late. A mob of people, all dressed in black and wearing masks, started beating me with their fists, and some of them used objects to hit me. I don't know how many people were involved. It seemed like 5, 10, 15, or 20. It could have been that many. They beat me so much that I lost control of my GoPro camera that I was holding, which was then stolen from me. And when I thought it was over, I was wrong. I put my arms up to try to shield my face, as well as to signal to them that I was surrendering and that I wasn't there to fight, but that really signaled to them to be more aggressive. So then they started dumping what I believe were milkshakes and eggs, throwing it at my face, which blinded me, so I couldn't see, and I was kicked some more, punched some more, and all this time I kept thinking, where are the police? I could still see the Multnomah County Justice Center in front of me, but no police ever arrived. I eventually stumbled away, bleeding, across the park, and I lost my balance, so I sat down on the ground in front of the courthouse. And from there, a medic SWAT team informed me that in order to get an ambulance to be taken to a hospital, I would have to walk to the police precinct. In other words, walk back in the direction of the demonstrators who just attacked me. Later that night, after arriving in the emergency room, I had a CT scan, which confirmed that I was diagnosed with a brain hemorrhage.
From which you're suffering neurological damage.
Now let's look at the entire assault in full screen. But folks, I've had to mute out some of the bad language.
Yo!
Oh, look at this brave, brave man here with his face fully covered, hiding, working in a mob. Really, really brave. Yes, now look at this woman here, smiling and enjoying herself, really, really enjoying herself. And same with this guy over here, having such a good day watching a guy get assaulted. Thugs. That's what they are, thugs. And I always thought that conservatives were supposed to be the rednecks. Now listen to Andy Ngo's lawyer.
Against his critics tonight and promising to bring violent attackers to justice. But critics say they're not buying it. Well, let's get reaction from Andy Ngo's attorney, Harmeet Dillon. Harmeet, great to have you with us tonight.
Thank you, Shannon. Happy to be here.
So the mayor has said in a tweet tonight, and he's active on Twitter. He's been dusting it up with you a little bit tonight too. He says we'll do everything we can to make sure that those who have committed violence are held accountable. Do you have confidence in that?
I think Mayor Wheeler should do less tweeting and more policing in his city. He is a disgrace and an embarrassment. Look, Shannon, as your report indicated, Antifa has been running wild and controlling the streets as if they were a criminal cartel for a couple of years now, and the mayor deliberately and persistently understaffs events to the point where neighboring counties don't even want to send their sheriffs into Portland to help with events like this because they know that their officers would be at risk because of the understaffing and the policies. So what happened on Saturday is that my client was put into the hospital for over 30 hours with a subarachnoid brain hemorrhage. It's dangerous, and he's continuing to suffer from the consequences of that. 2 other people were assaulted and were bleeding. And the people who did that have been identified on social media, and they are at large, as far as I can tell. This is outrageous. It shouldn't happen in America.
Okay, so there are a number of groups you know who have said, listen, he's a provocateur. He goes to these events. He talks about on Twitter that he's going to be there. He's got his own camera, which I understand, at least according to his tweets, his GoPro camera was taken. So I don't know if he's recovered that or will have any of the footage from that. But the Human Rights Campaign press secretary, Rapid Response Charlotte Clymer, said this: violence is completely wrong. And I find it sad and weak to allow a sniveling weasel like Andy Ngo to get under one's skin like this, but I'm also not going to pretend that this wasn't Ngo's goal from the start. I mean, let's cut the blank here. This is what they do.
Ah, that is just absolutely repugnant. So Ngo went there with the intention of getting insulted? That's disgusting.
This is disgusting, Shannon. And I'm a former journalist. You're a journalist. I can't say this in strong enough terms. I don't care what the journalist's political persuasion is. The fact that political violence in our country is allowed to silence the views of a journalist with the implicit consent of the city is a civil rights violation, as one of your commentators commented earlier. It can be actionable under federal law. Separately actionable is the police putting citizens into a dangerous situation, which actually happened with Andy. The medics associated with the police actually forced him to walk through the mob again to get to an ambulance. This is outrageous. This is Portland. This isn't some podunk town with no resources. It's a major American city. And, you know, nobody can pretend that, oh, well, you know, Andy, we don't agree with his views, that can happen to him. Would it be okay if this happened in Texas to some liberal reporter? It's not okay in America under any circumstances, and it's disgusting that members of the media are pretending as if it is.
I want to ask you, do you think, I mean, Senator Ted Cruz has talked about a federal investigation possibly getting the FBI, the DOJ involved to look into these issues, to look into the mayor, whether he's abdicating his duty. He, again, of course, as Trace reported, came back tonight and said, you don't even have your facts straight. I've never ordered the police not to get involved, that kind of thing. Do you think there is a role for the federal government in some way to get involved in investigating what's going on in Portland?
Shannon, as a conservative, and any good conservative would tell you that the last thing you want, it's a last resort to have the federal government come in and do anything. However, the last resort is sometimes required. It was required during the civil rights movement when Southern politicians and police refused to protect African Americans. It's been required in places where the rights of gay citizens have been assaulted and local officials refuse to follow up. And it is warranted here and in other circumstances where a city refuses to provide equal protection to its citizens. That's what happened here. And separately, refuses to protect the First Amendment right of a journalist to do what he set out to do. Portland police are selective here. It's not everybody who's getting assaulted and beat up, but the Antifa are signaled in advance that nothing will happen to them if they assault Andy Ngo. They actually knew his name. They shouted it out. They followed him. They targeted him. They blinded him with milkshakes. Then they punched him with fiberglass hardened hands and gloves. And they did this with impunity because Ted Wheeler is on Twitter as opposed to doing his job in City Hall.
Well, I just quickly, because we're out of time, but I want to make sure I get this in from the police. They are going after the mayor, too, and saying, listen, these extreme groups on both sides need to get out of here. They need to get the message we're not going to accept the violence. He said, and they also say in this Portland Police Association, remove the handcuffs from our officers and let them stop the violence through strong and swift enforcement action. Enough is enough. We know police officers were being attacked and injured as well. They're frustrated. They don't like the critique that they're not doing their jobs. Is the mayor, is there a demonstrable link that the mayor is keeping them from doing their jobs?
Well, there is. I mean, one of the officers, when Andy begged for help on Saturday, one of the officers said to him, and by the way, this isn't the first time he's heard this, we were told we shouldn't intervene and incite the group. I mean,
Yes, folks, the police were told not to intervene and incite the group. Now, to any lefties out there who have just watched this video, it is time for you to rethink just who and what you are supporting.